Okay, part two of part two. The screen went black. I had to go back on the tape and everything. This is going to take some practice. There was a picture that I wanted to show you, but I wasn't sure how I should hold it to the camera. So now I'll know. If I hold it about here, you'll be able to see it. Okay, here we go again. I have always been good at whittling. I carved a ship once that my teacher exhibited for parents' night at school. First, I whittled an angle on one end of the twig. Then I cut a smaller twig and sharpened it to a point. I whittled an angle on that twig and bound the two angles face to face with a strip of green bark. It was supposed to be a fish hook. So that's the picture we're seeing here. If you've got the video, you can see Sam Gribley's attempt at fish hooks that he's documenting in his notebook. If you're on tape here, you'll see the angles. It makes more sense when you can see the picture, how he's talking a lot about whittling angles. And you see how he's got two twigs whittled down to the point where their ends fit together at an angle. One of these is sharp, and the other is notched in a way which it can be tied to a string. And then he's fastened the bottom of those angled, pointed together pieces, and he's bound those with twine too. So it's actually a fish hook, and I'm curious to see if it works or not. It looks like it would be hard to get it to hold together and stay in the fish's mouth when you set the hook. But we'll see. According to a book on how to survive on the land that I read in the New York Public Library, this was the way to make your own hooks. I then dug for worms. I had hardly chopped the moss away with my axe before I hit frost. It had not occurred to me that there would be frost in the ground in May. Hey, it's May right now. But then, yes, it is, Mr. Cat. But then I had not been on a mountain before. He hadn't been there before. He's learning. This did worry me, because I was depending on fish to keep me alive until I got to my great-grandfather's mountain, where I was going to make traps and catch game. I looked into the stream to see what else I could eat, and as I did, my hand knocked a rotten log apart. I remembered about old logs and all the sleeping stages of insects that are in it. I chopped away until I found a cold white grub. I swiftly tied a string to my hook, put the grub on, and walked up the stream looking for a good place to fish. All the manuals I had read were very emphatic about where fish lived, and so I had memorized this. In streams, fish usually congregate in pools and deep calm water. The heads of riffles, small rapids, the tail of a pool, eddies below rocks or logs, deep undercut banks. In the shade of overhanging bushes, all are very likely places to fish. This stream did not seem to have any calm water, and I must have walked 1,000 miles before I found a pool by a deep undercut bank in the shade of overhanging bushes. Actually, it wasn't that far. It just seemed that way because as I went looking and finding nothing, I was sure I was going to starve to death. Sounds scary, Sam. I squatted on this bank and dropped in my line. I did so want to catch a fish. One fish would set me upon my way, because I had read how much you can learn from one fish. By examining the contents of its stomach, you can find what the other fish are eating, or you can use the internal organs as bait. The grub went down to the bottom of the stream. It swirled around and hung still. Suddenly, the string came to life and rode back and forth and around in a circle. I pulled with a powerful jerk. The hook came apart, and whatever I had went circling back to its bed. Gosh, Sam. And here's the picture. And we see a young boy with a string in the water. It's line drawing mostly, sort of a loose gestural illustration. Looks like he's got a nice pair of boots on, cargo pants, collar under his sweater, and a serious look on his face. Well, that almost made me cry, his hook coming apart. My bait was gone, my hook was broken, and I was getting cold, frightened, and mad. I whittled another hook, but this time I cheated and used string to wind it together instead of bark. Oh, the first one was bark. I walked back to the log and luckily found another grub. I hurried to the pool and I flipped a trout out of the water before I knew I had a bite. The fish flopped and I threw my whole body over it. I could not bear to think of it flopping itself back into the stream. I cleaned it like I had seen the man at the fish market do, examined its stomach, and found it empty. This horrified me. What I didn't know was that an empty stomach means the fish are hungry and will eat about anything. However, I thought at the time that I was a goner. Sadly, I put some of the internal organs on my hook, and before I could get my line to the bottom, I had another bite. I lost that one, but got the next one. I stopped when I had 5 nice little trout and looked around for a place to build a camp and make a fire. It wasn't hard to find a pretty spot along that stream. I selected a place beside a mossy rock in a circle of hemlocks. I decided to make a bed before I cooked. I cut off some boughs for a mattress. Then I leaned some dead limbs against the boulder and covered them with hemlock limbs. This made a kind of tent. I crawled in, lay down, and felt alone and secret and very excited. But the rest of this story. I was on the northeast side of the mountain. It grew dark and cold early. Seeing the shadows slide down on me, I frantically ran around gathering firewood. This is about the only thing I did right from that moment until dawn, because I remembered that the driest wood in a forest is the dead limbs that are still on the trees, and I gathered an enormous pile of them. That pile must still be there, for I never got a fire going. I got sparks, sparks, sparks. I even hit the tinder with the sparks. The tinder burned all right, but that was as far as I got. I blew on it, I breathed on it, I cupped it in my hands, but no sooner did I add twigs than the whole thing went black. Then it got too dark to see. I clicked steel and flint together, even though I couldn't see the tinder. Finally, I gave up and crawled into my hemlock tent, hungry, cold, and miserable. I can talk about that first night now, although it is still embarrassing to me because I was so stupid and scared that I hate to admit it. I had made my hemlock. Now that's pretty harsh, Sam. He's been so mature and positive, though. Everybody gets down on themselves. I had made my hemlock bed right in the stream valley where the wind drained down from the cold mountain top. It might have been all right if I had made it on the other side of the boulder, but I didn't. I was right on the main highway of the cold winds as they tore down upon the valley below. I didn't have enough hemlock boughs under me, and before I had my head down, my stomach was cold and damp. I took some boughs off the roof and stuffed them under me, and then my shoulders were cold. I curled up in a ball and was almost asleep when a whippoorwill called. If you have ever been within 40 feet of a whippoorwill, you will understand why I couldn't even shut my eyes. They are deafening. And I want to show this before we go on here. We've got another illustration here where he fells the hemlock, right? I think it was a hemlock. Like I said, I'm a little tired. It's late. But he fells a tree, builds a fire next to it, pulls some things over. It's pretty interesting to see here. And these illustrations are by the author. I think that's really neat. But for those of you on tape, it also says underneath the pictures, a couple of good shelters. Make sure your fire is on scraped earth. Also, be sure to put it out! Exclamation point. He's very serious about that. And Smokey the Bear will tell you that's very true. Well, anyway, the whole night went like that. I don't think I slept 15 minutes, and I was so scared and tired that my throat was dry. I wanted a drink but didn't dare go near the stream for fear of making a misstep and falling in and getting wet. So I sat tight and shivered and shook, and now I am able to say I cried a little tiny bit. That's okay, Sam. Got another picture, but I'm going to keep moving. It's some trees and probably Sam crying. Fortunately, the sun has a wonderfully glorious habit of rising every morning. When the sky lightened, when the birds awoke, I knew I would never again see anything so splendid as the round red sun coming up over the earth. I was immediately cheered and set out directly for the highway. Somehow, I thought that if I was a little nearer the road, everything would be all right. I climbed a hill and stopped. There was a house warm and cozy, with smoke coming out the chimney and lights in the windows, and only 100 feet from my torture camp. Without considering my pride, I ran down the hill and banged on the door. A nice old man answered. I told him everything in one long sentence and then said, "And so, can I cook my fish here because I haven't eaten in years?" He chuckled, stroked his whiskery face, and took the fish. He had them cooking in a pan before I knew what his name was. When I asked him, he said Bill something, but I never heard his last name because I fell asleep in his rocking chair that was pulled up beside his big, hot, glorious wood stove in the kitchen. I ate the fish some hours later, also some bread, jelly, oatmeal, and cream. Then he said to me, "Sam Gribley, if you are going to run off and live in the woods, you better learn how to make a fire. Come with me." Now I might cry a little, Sam. We spent the afternoon practicing. I penciled these notes on the back of a scrap of paper so I wouldn't forget. When the tinder glows, keep blowing and add fine, dry needles one by one. And keep blowing steadily, lightly, and evenly. Add 1-inch dried twigs to the needles and then give her a good big handful of small, dry stuff. Keep blowing. Good advice. Next time, Chapter 3. If I say it out loud, I might remember. Again, these aren't numbered, so I want to see if I can count them up as we go. A little fun game for me. The manner in which I find Gribley's farm. That must be Great Grandpa. Tune in next time. Love you, Tommy. See you again real soon, baby. Hang in there.